Hey, welcome back to the VintNerd, and today I have a special guest, Ed from Mission Ed Possible. Just look up Mission Ed Possible.
Yep.
It's on. Well, there'll be a link in here in this description, of course. And you interviewed me, I'm interviewing you, and we're gonna ask you some questions so the VintNerd viewers and everybody else can find out more about you.
Sounds good.
Let's find out more about Ed. So, questions. Why?
Why
are you doing retro? Why? Oh. What? Like, you weren't an accountant. Well, you weren't an accountant, right? Yeah, you weren't like.
You worried about offending me if I was an accountant. You weren't an accountant, right?
You weren't.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
You weren't born with Windows, right?
No.
So you had. Tell us. Start back.
Okay.
Where did this all begin?
Let's see. So I was born, and then I had a Atari 2600. No.
Let's move it up a little.
Yeah, a little bit faster. No, I got Atari 2600 about like 7th birthday or so. This was back around 81, 82 kind of time frame, and I always wanted to get an Atari, and I like saw ads for it and stuff, and
not the 2600, but the computer.
Well, actually, I did want the computer.
Before that, wanted the Atari.
I wanted the
game console,
but I wanted the Atari game console, but I did want to do programming. That was kind of something that my cousin had shown me a little bit on the Atari 8-bit. He showed me he had an 800, and he showed me some stuff on that. But it was like at that point, the 2600 was really hot right then, and for kids at that point, it was like, I really wanted the 2600. So that's what I started with.
Yeah, well, the nice thing was like, boom, next game.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Cartridge-based.
Cartridge-based, it's simple, whatever. No problem. And I got it that Christmas, and I was overjoyed. I was like, this was... it's like kind of like the Nintendo 64 kid. I don't know if you said that he freaks out because he gets the what he wants for Christmas, but that's how it was when I was a kid.
Do you have a photo of Christmas morning?
I do not.
Where you're like,
I don't. I would love to have a photo of that.
I have what's the football game?
The Mattel whatever. Yeah.
White man.
Yeah.
I have a video of me like. Or no, not video, but picture.
Yeah, nice. Yes, yeah. I have like nothing from that age, hardly. Yeah, I have about the only thing I have of that was I remember playing Buck Rogers on my 400, I think at that point, or I don't know if it was I had the 130 XE yet, but I had a high score, and I told my aunt, I'm like, can you take a picture of this? And so I have a picture of me playing on that, and I have no idea where it is now. Unfortunately, unfortunately.
Okay, so you started with technology in games with the Atari 2600, and then what happened there?
A couple years later, I got an Atari 400 because I really wanted to program, and my parents thought, okay, well, let's get him the 400 because that's going to be great for him to learn on, and if he likes something, you'll get something later if he really likes it and stuff. And so, I made the most of it. I had an Atari 400, I had an Atari 410 program recorder, and I had the programmer, which back then, the 400 and 800 didn't come with BASIC. It came with just what it had. And so the only thing you could do with it is do memo pad, which doesn't do anything.
I posted an Atari 400 in like one of my social media photos, and somebody's comment was, that's the Atari 400's the machine I got for Christmas, but my parents didn't know it needed anything. And so he spent like the next few days just memo pad. But it was probably great.
But that's
it was probably look. I'm putting characters on the screen.
Yeah, I mean,
that's pretty good.
Cool, but that's pretty sad too. So yeah, but I had the 410, so I was able to save and load my programs, learning BASIC. I had the manual and all that, and I had that nice book that was so easy to learn BASIC from. Not really. It was pretty dry. Like it read like a normal they call it like, was it VCR instructions or whatever. It was really not ready to be consumed, especially by like a 9-year-old kid. It's like, and so, but I tried. I was trying, and I did have magazine subscriptions, so I was able to type in programs. So you would not believe how many programs I typed in using the 400.
Oh,
which is, and just thinking about it now, my fingers probably like are cringing from how much I had to type on that thing. So
but if they didn't have that chiclet flat keyboard, your parents wouldn't have spent more money for the
true.
800.
Yeah, that's true.
You were able to get what you got.
That's true. And you know, I can't fault them too much. I did get BASIC, and I did get started with it, and that was kind of my start of programming. You know, I didn't really know what I was doing. You know, going through type-in programs, you only can get so much out of it. With, you know, because a lot of it it's not really meant to be read. A lot of this because it's meant to be printed. Because you know, every character and every line mattered, but it wasn't really meant to be understood what it was doing. Because the variable names were all like one letter, and it's like I have no idea what this is doing. But you type it in,
you learn from it.
Yeah, and you learn a little bit.
Variations.
Yeah, you learn. You know, it's like all these data statements, all these numbers and everything. It's like, oh, cool, I'm doing something cool, and you get something out of it. You know, it's a Christmas tree, you know, with music playing and stuff like that.
So how'd you get from your first computer, the Atari 400, to Mission Ed Possible?
Well, we had, after the 400, then I got a 130XE and a 1050 drive, and then I had it made. That was like the ultimate, because I actually was able to, you know, load games. I was able to do everything, you know, that normal people did on their Atari 8-bits. And I was able to, you know, just have a lot of fun with it. And I actually had that for a long time until I got high school time, when I got a 1040 STE. I had saved up enough money. I had a job at that time, and I saved up and bought my STE. And you know, at that point, it was a little later in the game, obviously, when the STE came out. I bought it, and a friend of mine bought it, and so we were able to do stuff together, and we did user groups, and we did all this stuff. And so I had a blast with it. And you know, my programming stuff I didn't really do a whole lot, like on the, you know, as it got later on the STE stuff. It was, you know, mostly just playing games and stuff. But then, you know, the PCs came out, and then, you know, I got my career started and everything, and didn't really go back to
career programming back then?
Some, you know, I did do like sysadmin work, and then I got a job, you know, I was doing programming / sysadmin, and kind of doing a lot of that kind of stuff, and, you know, a lot of Unix-based stuff. And then I kind of, over the years, I kind of went through a kind of peaks and valleys of going, I really am interested in doing retro stuff, doing the Atari stuff that I had back in the day. So I would do it both in emulation, you know, having an emulator with either MAME or doing any of the 2600 or the 400, 800, whatever emulators. But then I really like the idea of having the physical product too. Yeah. It's like there's something, emulators are cool, but you can only get so much with an emulator, and having the physical product. So I started accumulating stuff. And
physical hardware.
Yeah, physical hardware, which I'm sure you know nothing about accumulating.
Well, these weren't here yesterday.
and it just, it multiplies. And I think you know this, right? It's you get a couple of them together, you know, you get two computers together, a third one comes along, right? It's just, they're like rabbits. And so,
well, eBay is the stork.
Yeah, exactly.
It just shows up at your doorstep.
Yeah, I don't know where this came from.
What am I going to do with this one?
I don't know. Well, I guess we'll have to put it with the others, and you know, and just keep throwing it on the pile. But yeah, so I got to a point where I just kept accumulating, and I needed to finish my basement. So we're like, okay, I need to get rid of some of this stuff. So I sold a lot of it on eBay. I didn't really keep a whole lot of it. And then it was like, okay, you know what? If I really want this stuff again, I can always buy it again. The thing that's nice about this stuff is, yes, there are rare things, but for the most part, you can find most things that you've had.
For now.
Yeah, for now.
Give it 20 years.
Yeah, but you know, it does go up in price every time you do it. Mm-hmm. But the idea is like, for the most part, unless you know you have stuff from, you know, your programs you wrote in your childhood or whatever, for the most part it's replaceable stuff you can buy again. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of what I told myself. It's like, you know, if I really want to do this again, I'll buy it again. Not a big deal, you know. I wasn't too worried about it. So I you know, a couple years ago, I decided that I wanted to do something on YouTube. I've been wanting to try to make a change with my career and all that, and I was just going, you know what, I really like doing retro stuff. We also did some other stuff, so it was like kind of a conglomeration of a lot of different things. You know, I started out, the channel was very different when I started. If you go back and look, well, actually, I've hidden a lot of the videos, but I did a lot of videos on like working out.
We have all hidden a lot of the videos.
It's like the skeletons in the closet, you know. We don't look at those. We don't talk about those videos. But yeah, I started out. Originally it was going to be gamified challenges of where I was learning things. So like I would do stuff like working out and like a level up, you know, and I would do stuff. And
well, I saw your video of learning guitar. Well, Ed's a musician, keyboardist, right?
Yeah, primarily.
Yep. I'm a guitarist primarily. Yeah. But you had a video.
We should jam sometime. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You did a video learning guitar. Was it 60 days?
Yeah, it was a 60-day challenge that I did 30 days of. Yes.
Yeah. Because you only need 30 days.
Yeah, exactly. You only need. I'm a master now. No.
Yeah.
As a we were trying to do different things, and so the Rocksmith video was pretty cool because it was like. They actually the company that makes it, Ubisoft, they actually put this challenge out and people would make their videos showing their progress.
Nice.
And so that I felt like that fit with what I was trying to do with so if you watch the video, it actually has like level up sounds and stuff, and it's like trying to kind of show it's like I'm gaining skills like an RPG, you know, kind of thing. And we did that for a while. We were trying to different things. You know, I had like food trying videos and just a bunch of different things to see what would stick and
what you liked doing.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of the things that we wanted to do with this is we wanted to do things that I enjoyed doing, because I'm not going to make content for just to try to please an audience. I wanted to make something that I enjoyed, that I would want to watch, you know. And so we tried different things, but one of the things I was thinking about was, you know what, a good way to get a lot of hours would be to do streaming. And I was like going, well, I'm not, you know, I really like retro games. I'm not so much a modern day. I don't play shooters really. I don't do what the popular guys do on Twitch and stuff. I would like to do retro stuff. So started off on Twitch doing some streams of just playing retro games and actually some modern games as well. And then we switched over to do it on YouTube, and I started to do a weekly ST show of just playing like 10 games on the ST, and I did that for like I don't know, like 6 to 8 months or something. And just every week I'd come up with another 10 games, and I was just playing for like 10 minutes or so and chat with the audience about it. And there'd be a lot of stuff where I'd never played the game before, and they helped me out and say, hit this, do that. And I'm like, oh wow, I didn't even know that was a thing. And
right. Well, that's how you learn.
Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of it was I was going in cold, and you know, the whole idea was, you know, having the audience kind of experiencing it with me, as opposed to me like kind of going, this is a walkthrough of the game. You know, no, I'm not interested in that. I would be interested in more of the.
That's during the live stream, right?
Yeah, during a live stream.
So I did do a static video, if you want to call it that, where I was having trouble with something. I'm like, oh, people are going to be yelling at me at this, and then like, you know, you edit the video, you put it up, and then like the days go by, and somebody left a comment kind of like, rah, rah, rah. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, you said people would be yelling at you on the video while I'm like, oh, I get it, okay.
Yeah.
So he was letting me know when that video got to the point. He's like, no, you're gonna.
He was following the cue.
But it wasn't live, so I didn't have the knowledge of.
It can be interesting, you know, having people kind of like telling you to do stuff or whatever, and it's like, oh wait, what am I doing wrong? And, you know, whatever. And so it's cool. But so I did that for quite a while. And then I had the idea of doing, because I had always wanted to make a game on the Atari 8-bit using assembly language. Because,
I wanted to get to this. I also want to get back to the ST.
Yeah, we're good.
But you do a lot of programming videos on your channel.
Yes.
And I've watched a few of them, and it's really interesting where you're showing, you correct me if I'm wrong, you're using emulator in that case, right?
Correct.
And I haven't used the emulators. You talked about doing emulators and then buying the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
I thought for about 2 days of using an emulator and said, screw it, I'm buying an Atari 800XL on eBay. I just want the real hardware. Yeah. Screw the emulator. But what I've learned now...
There's some advantages with the emulator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I've learned is that emulators have a lot of advantage where there's some better cruxes or tools built in to get over some of the original hardware. and that you can cut and paste and all this other stuff. So programming in the emulator has got to be sweet compared to trying to.
Yes.
I can't reach one from
Yes.
here. Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah, it can be a real challenge. You know, we were doing something earlier, and I'm like having to actually type in basic stuff on the computer. I'm like going, my head was about to explode because I'm like, I'm used to having modern development tools. You know, I as a developer, as my career, this is my bread and butter. I do development, like, you know, I have my IDEs that I can do my editing and do all these tricks and stuff to make it so so much easier.
Not the old IDE hard drive, but
no,
integrated development environment.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Sorry, non-programmer speak.
Well, just, for anybody.
Yeah. It's basically a fancy editor, you know. Yeah. And basically, so I've got it actually done pretty well to where I can type the commands and then have a command line thing just, boom, fired up in the emulator. And so I don't have to mess with any loading or anything like that. It's automatically there. And
are there any frameworks or anything in the IDE specific to Atari programming?
There are some stuff that does some syntax highlighting for me, but nothing crazy. A lot of those things, to be honest, kind of get in my way, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm mostly using it because I have certain things that I like to do, where if I want to change everything in one column, I can do that, or I can do a lot of different things. But for the most part, I use it as a glorified notepad, effectively. But the idea here is that I can easily, the main thing here is the iteration time. How long it takes me from making a change to where I can see the change in the program. Lowering that time is critical, because if it takes you a whole bunch of time to do this iteration, it just gets really boring. You know, when I was doing some of the stuff where it's like having to wait for like copy and paste that's like really slow, where you're like just sitting there waiting, okay, and then do the thing, and it drags on. You need to make it so that it's immediately as fast as possible. And also, you were mentioning extra tools. Well, with the emulator, like I'm using Altera on the PC. Sadly, it doesn't have a Mac client unless you use like Wine to be able to do it. The deal is that it has a really good debugger, so I can see what's going on. All the registers. I can put out like a trace command to be able to see what all the variables are.
Because it's running a virtual Atari 8-bit computer where you can freeze it and look at where everything is at.
Yeah,
which you can't do on the hardware. You can. Well, they do have debuggers. I do have.
But it's on the same screen.
I didn't tell you. I do have a 6502 hardware component to put on it, and uses a Raspberry Pi to.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nice. You have to show me that. Yeah. But no, you can, like with the assemblers for the 8-bit, you can do a debugger. But the problem is you can't see what's on the screen and see the debugging and be able to type stuff. It's just, you don't have enough real estate. It's really not made to do that. Whereas, you know, in my development environment, I've got 2 monitors. I can set up like, okay, here's the screen. Here's another window of all of the things that are going on. Mm-hmm. So it makes a huge, huge difference.
So on your channel, you cover a lot of that.
Oh yeah. I all of my development that I do on my adventure series, which is I'm making a roguelike adventure game on the Atari 8-bit in assembly language, because assembly language is very important, because as a kid, having BASIC and only having BASIC, you're really limited. BASIC, you know, it was always, as a kid, I always felt like what I was making in there was always going to be less than any game that I would buy in a store, and it was this gap.
Yeah,
and
if you're writing anything serious and basic, they're always like, well, you can make assembler calls for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So why not just write an assembler?
Exactly. And if you already knew assembly, well, why not write an assembly? It's this catch-22. But there was always this gap between what I could ever make and what was actually out there. And so it was always like a thing where I felt like I need to learn assembler. I want to know this stuff, but I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the tools and all that. And
so what assembler are you using in emulation?
So I actually assemble it on the PC. I use an assembler called MADS, which produces the object code. And so I'm able to run it directly. I don't have to deal with the assembler editor or Mac 65 or anything like that. So it's assembling it at PC speed, modern PC speed, and just sending the object file over there. So
how many terabytes of storage do you need to save that Atari 8-bit?
Terabytes, the number of bytes of storage. Well, the game that I'm focusing on is going to be a 16K game.
Mm-hmm.
So that should tell you that's how much I need is 16K. So not much.
So even an old Windows machine.
Anything, yeah. So there's not a storage is not a problem.
Yep.
So
on your channel, you do that. You've played. You do streaming games. I see a lot of Atari 2600 streaming games.
Yep, we've been doing that for lately. So
anybody who's looked at videos I've done recently with some Atari cocktails mixing and playing games. I played a Atari 2600 game. And I never had an Atari 2600, and I could not play the game.
Really? What did you play? I'm curious.
You're gonna hate me. What's he playing at the end of Ready Player One?
Oh, Adventure.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah,
I never played it before.
It's not an easy game. It's I know a lot of people love it and stuff, and it's like it's not an easy game. So especially if you play at the harder difficulties. So. Yeah, so alcohol would probably be involved if I had to go through that game too.
There was a tiny bit.
Tiny bit of alcohol?
Because the drinks didn't come out that good.
Okay. But your
glass
viewers
has the recipe, and I made it, and I'm like, this recipe is for color, and not for satisfaction.
The viewers aren't going to know the difference.
So I'm like, okay, that's good.
Yeah,
let's play the game.
Yes.
So,
cool.
Anyways, so Atari STs. Being a musician, keyboard especially, I'm a little jealous being a guitar player that I can interface my guitars to a computer. Not ever as easy as a keyboard.
No, MIDI with the Atari STs and MIDI, it was really a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
It was when keyboards started coming out early 80s with MIDI. Because the way, just the nature of the instrument, a keyboard is very digital in a way, at least with the keystrokes. I mean, yes, there's a whole bunch of analog stuff with synthesizers and all that, but MIDI is just the notes, on or off, and and
the
just
performance
data.
It's
just the performance data. And so with MIDI, it was something that it was when I went to the ST, it was like, and I can do stuff with MIDI. And I actually had a keyboard at the time.
Were you playing back then?
Yeah, I was playing. I started playing keyboard when I was like 7 or 8. I took lessons when I was a kid and doing classical music, that like you do as a kid. And going to music lessons, every month and learning how to play for release and all that. But I did have a MIDI keyboard that it was actually an electronic piano. It was this huge Clavinova, massive thing that wasn't portable at all, even though I took it places. But yeah, I actually hooked it up to to the ST and did a bit with sequencing and stuff like that, because that's really what the main thing is there is doing sequencing.
Hybrid software, Dr. T's.
I don't even know what I used. I was just playing around with it. I didn't get as far as I should have, but the problem was that wasn't that interesting to me, especially because the keyboard that I had was not, and this is going to get in the weeds on MIDI, but was not multi-timbral. So the idea with that...
One sound, 4 notes.
Yes, that is the problem, is that it can only play one sound at a time. And the problem is that if you only have one instrument, you can only play that sound that's playing. You can't play drums along with it and guitar and all these other things. If you have a device...
The multi-timbral...
Yeah, like the MT32, which is the coveted device.
They were a couple some odd years away.
Yes.
Back then it was like, you want piano, there's your piano module.
Yeah, exactly.
You want drums, there's your drum.
So you would need physical other modules, and I didn't have that.
I probably spent more on MIDI equipment than guitars.
Oh,
then.
Yeah.
I had the gamut. I had racks of stuff.
Oh, nice, man. That my teenage self is jealous.
Well, nowadays it's all in software.
Yeah.
So I use Logic Pro.
Yeah.
It's just so easy.
Here's the thing, though. Yes, it's all in software. I still like hardware.
No, true.
I still like hardware.
Well, you'll be happy to know I tripped over. I may peruse eBay here and there. And somehow
things just show up.
I just tripped over. There's a Roland sound module that does 128 voices.
Okay. Which model is
like
it?
a 2 or 3 U rack.
Okay.
I don't remember the model number.
Okay.
And I I had to keep myself from not buying it because what am I going to do with it now?
Yeah. You just give it to me,
Yeah.
No, I actually have thought about doing a video because I actually have a.
I was going to ask, have you done any MIDI videos?
Not yet. I do actually have an EMU Proteus, which is a multi-timbral box. It's a rack unit, and I also have a DX7, Yamaha DX7. So I've actually thought about.
You still have a DX7?
I have a DX7. And it's not still. I actually bought it several years ago.
Wow.
I bought it for cheap, and I was like, I got to buy this because it's been kind of on my coveted list for so long. It's like, I want a DX7.
So it's not you didn't get it in the 90s or
no,
whatever.
No.
Okay.
I do have a nice workstation. I have a Korg M3 keyboard, so I do have a nice keyboard.
So
that's what
for anybody who doesn't know what the hell we're talking about,
sorry, going in the weeds on music stuff.
Yamaha who makes everything, right? Sport utility vehicles. I don't know. The DX7 is an iconic music keyboard. A lot of the 80s and 90s synth sounds were from the DX7.
Oh yeah, some of the ones are directly from it. Yeah, like the Top Gun soundtrack, half of it. Yeah. So
And so like when people say nowadays, CDs and MP3s aren't as good as records, well, the actual DX7 making the synth sounds is the best you can do, as opposed to samples on Logic Pro or something like that.
But to be honest, the modern equivalent is pretty good. Yeah. It's like it's for all intents and purposes, it's just fine. But for me,
this one goes up to 11.
Yeah, this one goes. But having the physical thing is just there's just something cool about it, and so like for me, yes, I do mess around with VSTs on virtual instruments or whatever on things like Logic or things like that. But for me, I still like having physical hardware. It's just a thing. I don't know. It's just like, I don't have to explain it to you. Having the physical hardware. It's kind of like the emulation versus physical stuff. The same idea.
Mm-hmm. Well, cool.
Yeah, so I will be working on a new video for that too. So
for MIDI.
Yeah, for MIDI.
Sweet.
So that'll be neat.
Tell me something I haven't asked yet.
Well, let's see. Oh, that's a hard question to answer.
Because I can ask questions, but I'm asking because I don't know.
Okay.
But there's things I don't know to even ask.
Okay. Let's see.
Like, where's your channel going forward?
Where's my channel going forward?
Well, you just crossed 1,000 users.
Yes, I did. We are now at 1,000 users, subscribers.
Or subscribers.
Subscribers, same idea. So we're actually looking at doing kind of a little bit of changes. Still keeping very true to the retro stuff, but we're going to be kind of catering a little bit to different stuff, like more maker stuff with doing 3D printing, electronics. I've always been interested in tinkering with electronics, doing stuff with like Raspberry Pis and Arduinos and stuff like that. And it's one of those things that I think that a lot of the retro guys are also into. It's kind of a kind of a modern incarnation of that kind of tinkering mindset of like going, oh man, play with this and all that stuff.
Did you ever tinker with the Atari 8-bit joystick ports?
No. Well,
really?
No, well, not on the Atari. What I have done though is I have built some stuff with Arduino to be able to use Atari joysticks as a Windows joystick. So I have done that.
Oh, sure, yeah. But I'm not talking joystick.
I know. But you're actually using it as a communications port? No.
Yeah, well, the modems and stuff. The for people don't know, at least on I'm not sure on the Commodore copies and literally copies the 9-pin joystick port of the Atari for joystick devices.
Sure.
But I don't know if the Commodore does this, but the peripheral interface adapter that Atari uses, say the 4 directions, up, down, left, right, digital inputs can be programmed to be digital outputs.
Right.
So you can actually program and control things. So it's almost like, we haven't come full circle, but you could use the Atari joystick ports to control you can write to LCD displays. You can
use it as a serial device.
As a serial device,
in and out.
or control LEDs.
Yeah.
So
that'd be an interesting project.
I
know where you're going. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Well, you'll like this. As a lad in my childhood bedroom with an Atari 400 and a local Radio Shack, I was wiring up 120 volts.
Oh boy!
To beefy enough triacs, which are switchers, being controlled by the digital outputs of the Atari 400. And to this day, I'm surprised I did not electrocute myself. But I was trying to create controlled lighting because I was playing guitar back then. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so because PARs or lamps or whatever.
Sure.
Now LEDs nowadays are so much easier and safer.
Yes.
But that's what I was doing with that back then. It was pretty sweet stuff. Now you do it with the Arduinos or the Raspberry Pis, and it's like, oh, I could do that. Well, we were doing it 40 years ago.
Yeah, that would be interesting, especially. Yeah, that'd be a cool video idea of actually programming something to interface with something and do a like either serial or just do output. You have 8 pins or whatever you can use, 9.
Well, if I get around to it, I was gonna program my sprinkler system controlled by an Atari 400.
Wow.
Yeah.
There is something to be said. About you had mentioned in another video we were talking about the fact that. No one is going to use these machines in the real world today. But what's interesting about them is you never have to worry about them getting hacked. You never have to worry about them just dying because of whatever.
Well, you don't have to worry about them dying.
Well, here's the deal. These machines, most of them, if they've been taken care of, they fire up. They
usually, yeah.
Yeah. As far as, think about like electronics and stuff that are that old and stuff, it's a lot of it doesn't just work after a long time. These things work, and there's a reason why some of these companies will use things like this because it just works. I had bought a lot of Commodore stuff last year, and one of the interesting things, it was still used in production. It was used at a medical office. They were using some custom software. And they were using it to do like cognitive therapy. They were like basically having shapes on the screen and having the user having to identify the shape or say left, right, or what, different very simple things. But the idea was that they had developed this software like 30, 40 years ago, but they kept using it. And it was one of those things that it worked. Yes, they sometimes had to tweak some, like the hardware had to be repaired sometimes, but using that for 40 years straight and never having to upgrade it, never having to deal with the internet, never having to deal
with these new drivers.
Yeah, no, none of that. And there's something to be said about that, and that's kind of neat. I was very enamored with the idea that the fact that they were still using this thing, and they actually had dongles. They actually made dongles for this software. I'm going to do a video of opening it and see what they actually did. It doesn't work unless you have it in.
Well, it's going to be all epoxied inside.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the idea of it, that's just cool. It's like,
so don't tell my kids this, but if there are grandchildren in the future, they will be playing like Spinnaker Atari 8-bit games.
There you go, Alphabet Zoo, whatever. Hey, yeah, and it's
if it was good enough for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I with my kids, I raise them. They, the kids today, a lot of them, they don't appreciate the classics, but my kids, I was like, all right, here we go. We're going to start you off here. And so they knew all about, the 2600 and all this stuff a long time ago. They grew up with it. And, it was one of those things that they didn't ever look down on those games. Whereas a lot of kids today, they would like, why are you playing that? And it's like, it's still good. Just because you might have better graphics and stuff doesn't mean it's a better game.
Right.
It's if it still works. I was like talking to a friend. It's like their favorite game was Freeway. It's a very simple game. It's just like kind of like Frogger. You're just getting the chicken across the road. That's all it is. But you can get knocked down by cars and stuff. But if it's fun, it's a 2-player game, so it's competitive and all that. And if it's fun, who cares? So,
Cool. Well, thanks for making the trek down here to sunny California now.
Today.
After 11 atmospheric river storms and pumps in the backyard, getting it out of here and stuff. But it's been great, and go check out Ed's channel, Mission Ed Possible. Especially if you're into programming, Atari ST, all the retro stuff, basically. So it's been nice. Thanks a lot.
Well, thanks for having me, Steve.
No problem at all.
Appreciate it.
So thanks for watching, and catch you next time.
Take care.